Hello and welcome back to another live stream presented by Women's Health and Wellbeing Services. My name is Melanie Robson. I'm a counselling psychologist by trade, also program hunter and gatherer. I do a few things here at Women's Health and Wellbeing Services. So we are a counselling service for women, for children, for couples, for families. We welcome everyone. And in particular, we are a perinatal mental health service. So we focus a lot on helping women and partners and families going through pregnancy and birth, before, during, after, particularly in relation to their mental and emotional well-being. And that's very much going to be the focus of today's little live stream, looking in particular at how it's been to be pregnant and giving birth in the middle of a worldwide pandemic, really kind of uncharted territory. Just wanted to add that if you are on our Facebook page right now watching this, it's 2 o'clock on a Saturday. I wish. It's 2 p.m. on Wednesday, the 10th of June. By all means, drop us a line. You're welcome. This is a live stream, so we welcome live chats, any kind of questions you have, or I'd really love to hear from any mums who would like to just talk about some of their experiences. If you happen to be online now, if you know anyone around you, say, hey, get on their Facebook page right now. Mel's chatting about it. She would love to hear from you and your experiences about how you've got through COVID-19 and all the challenges and restrictions and unknowns whilst being pregnant. So please, by all means, jump on and say hello and share what's been happening for you. I can't imagine what this has been like for the mums, for the partners, for the families going through a pregnancy. My pregnancy was many years ago under very different circumstances. And here we are. Nobody could predict that this was going to happen in 2020. So whether your pregnancy was planned or unplanned, either way, pregnant, here you are, trundling along, exciting, scary, many different feelings that come up in a pregnancy, particularly if it's your first pregnancy, and then bam, along comes a pandemic. What does that mean? What has that been like? So what I've done to gather some information to talk to you about today, I've spoken to a couple of pregnant women that I know in my life. I've had a conversation with the child health nurse. I've also sort of got some information from the midwife that a family member has used to get some feedback about what she's noticed with pregnant and birthing mums. So I wanted to acknowledge that it must be almost traumatizing, I think, for many mums, particularly first-time mothers or first-time pregnancies, suddenly negotiating and navigating your way through this pandemic and what has happened, and seeing all these things that you had hoped for, you'd wished for, you'd planned for, just get pulled away from you. So by that I mean a baby shower. That's many, particularly first-time mums, still love to have a baby shower. I still remember my baby shower, and it was like 16 years ago. I still look at the photos, and I'm really grateful for that. And I really am very sad for any mums who've not been able to have that. And I have certainly heard that this has been very common, that, obviously with the needing to isolate, stay home, particularly being pregnant, you're vulnerable, and you might already be a little anxious and a bit paranoid about being out there in the world and not wanting to expose yourself to too many bugs and people and all this kinds of stuff. And then suddenly you've got to up the ante on that. And of course that means then not being able to have people in your house to experience something like a baby shower, which is just such it's an old-fashioned, traditional, lovely celebration, generally with other women. Of course, that may not be the case, whatever kind of works for you. But the point is, it's all about you. It's all about the baby. It's receiving gifts. It's love. It's laughter. It's receiving advice, playing kind of crazy games, kind of like hens night games, but baby versions, kind of stuff. And how devastating that must be to not been able to have done that. I do know someone who was eventually able to just have a really small one, particularly much more recently, but way further in the pregnancy than she would have liked. If you missed out on that, I'm wondering if there's any other way for you to celebrate being pregnant, even if it's after the birth of your baby. I really do encourage you to still have something. Now that we're sort of stepping out of restrictions, certainly here in Perth in Western Australia, things have really relaxed a lot. Having said that, when you have a newborn, you might not exactly feel like socialising and having lots of people over at your house. You certainly probably don't want to be organising anything, and in fact, the less you can do and the less you can attend to other people, the better, and the more that people can help and support you navigate certainly the first few weeks of a newborn, the better. I guess I'm encouraging you not to give up, and to see if that can evolve into some other little ritual or ceremony, and when we go through significant life experiences or life stages, life transitions, such as pregnancy, birth, becoming a mother, we do often have rituals really and little ceremonies that are associated with those incredible life experiences. And I would say that, a baby shower is one of them. The same if you're getting married, many people still choose to have a hen's night or a buck's night or a kitchen tea or whatever, and of course, when somebody dies, we also have a funeral or a wake. We have little, rituals. We might have a living wake if somebody is dying. There's many different examples of that, and they're actually really important. Symbolically, I think they're very important, aside from the yummy food and the gifts and the fun and the coming together and the celebration of what is about to come or what has happened. It's kind of an honouring of life's processes and life's big changes, and we do need to honour that by some sort of little ritual. And I think it's been very tragic that for many new mummies, they haven't been able to have that. So if at some point you're able to have that, even if it morphs into, if you're still choosing to get your baby christened or baptized or have a naming ceremony, anything, I don't care, kind of thing. But anything that can just help ease some of the sadness and disappointment that may have come with not being able to have a baby shower. I'm kind of very focused on the baby shower, but I do know that for many first-time mums, that's really important little event. And if it's your second or third pregnancy, what am I trying to say? That if you haven't been able to have one with the first pregnancy, and later you go on to have a second pregnancy, I know many women feel really funny about having a baby shower on their second pregnancy or third or whatever. I say, if you missed out the first time and you're really bummed about that, go for it and have one with the second baby. Who cares? Make it up as you go along. This is about you. This is about your experience, your pregnancy, and your right to feel joy and to experience something that many other women had the choice to experience. And I guess that notion of choice really comes up now, and the lack of choice that, sure, many of us have experienced quite willingly, as we've been told we have to stay indoors and do all these things to stay safe. But, piled on top of being pregnant and all the kind of wild, crazy things that come along with that, and kind of these last little leaps of freedom and choice around, well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have a baby shower, and I'm going to shop for this and that. To see that go away and be taken from you, boy, really, it's really hard, I think. And you certainly wouldn't be alone if you're part of any online mothers groups and forums and stuff, or chat groups. I'm sure there's many of you that have experienced that together, and I really encourage you to talk about that and kind of grieve that together with other mums who know exactly what it's been like to miss out on these things. On the notion of shopping, I wanted to say too that even such a simple thing as shopping, physically being able to go to a store, buy all the baby stuff you want to buy and know what it's like with your first baby. You go out there and you want to freaking colour coordinate things and get all this matching stuff and get all the cute stuff, and plus you're going to get all these awesome gifts and stuff from the baby shower, and then when you have the baby, you know, and often that's really fun. It's a really fun experience, and again, for many mums, they might not have been able to do that. You know, they might have been planning to do that. Say you were pregnant in January, February or December or whatever, and you thought, you know, probably March, April, go do that. Can't, you know, kind of thing. Shops might have actually been closed, or you might have been told from your midwife or obstetrician to really limit your contact with the outside world as best you can. So suddenly you haven't been able to do that. Sure, you might have been able to do some shopping online. It's not quite the same, you know, it's just not the same, particularly going into a baby shop and you're just kind of overwhelmed. Sure, a lot of it is about marketing and advertising, but who cares? You know, if that's your first baby and you want to do that and you want to just dive into that and buy stuff you're probably not going to use, who cares? You know, it's part of that experience, part of that joy, particularly of your first pregnancy. And again, what a loss to not be able to experience that. So if there's any way now, if it's not too late, that you can kind of hit the shops or go after baby's born. And remember, I know you care about what the nursery looks like, or what the frill on the bassinet looks like, or having little, you know, colour coordinated things, whatever. The baby doesn't care. I remember a midwife told me that when I was in hospital. I was in hospital quite a few weeks before my son was born. I had some medical complications, so I had to literally sit around in hospital on my ass for weeks at a time. And we hadn't started doing much of the nursery stuff, and I was really distraught. I was really looking forward to that. And a beautiful midwife who happened to be with me during the birth said, baby's not gonna care. Baby can sleep in a shoebox, you know, maybe not a shoebox, maybe a box or a drawer, whatever. And hearing that was of great relief to me, although I was still sad that I couldn't have things the way I wanted in time for the birth. It didn't matter at the end of the day. So maybe just try to keep that in mind, that I know it's important to you, and important to recognise that that sucks, that you haven't been able to sort of get things done in time. You won't be the first mother to experience that, and the baby won't mind. There's still time afterwards, and I don't know, you might have actually saved money and might have kind of come to realise that, hey, I probably didn't need all that stuff that I wanted to buy anyway. Yeah, but that's kind of another struggle, you know, that's kind of another thing that you might have missed out on. I wanted to mention too that certainly someone close to me who was pregnant during the pandemic said she experienced, you know, real initial panic and real confusion about, oh my God, what does this mean? You know, what's going to happen now? Can I go out? Can I not? And just increase the stress of being pregnant right now. And then finding quite conflicting and confusing information, very much like what we all did in the beginning. You know, there seemed to be news flashes every 4 or 5 hours about what was happening, and things were evolving, and just so much information coming at you. And, you know, and I can't imagine layering that on top of being pregnant and then going, well, does this mean I can go to my appointments or not? And I know for some mums that changed, that got cancelled, appointments got cancelled, or you might have still gone but things were really rushed or really stressed. You might have been hearing conflicting information from the midwife or the doctor or the obstetrician, who themselves were just kind of struggling to stay on top of the latest information that was coming in for them. You know, and you might have been advised to, if you had other children, to pull them out of school immediately so that they're not exposed to anything, and then bringing that home, and then suddenly everyone's at home and what's happening kind of thing. Right when you were hoping to just chill in the last few weeks or days or months or whatever that looked like for you, gone. You know, those kind of opportunities gone, and this kind of rising fear and anxiety about, oh my God, what is going to happen, and suddenly seeing things change before your eyes. Very overwhelming. The more information that you're able to get that is reliable, that is sort of valid, the better. You know, I think if you're well informed, not informed by confusing information, conflicting information, or information from people online who are just talking about their own fears and, oh, I heard this and I heard that. That's generally not helpful in terms of managing how you're coping and how you're feeling. But if you're able to get if you were able to get the most sort of up-to-date relevant information and then kind of go, okay, I've kind of got a bit of an understanding now of things, that can be helpful versus not knowing what is kind of going on. If you were planning, of course, on having some antenatal classes, many mums might have found that they cancelled, they were stopped. Really difficult. They might have been transitioned into some sort of online format. Better something than nothing, particularly if it's your first birth. You know, some of those classes, though, I have to say, you forget everything. I certainly forgot a lot of that stuff when I was in the thick of it and going, oh, you know, what am I supposed to be doing and thinking and whatever, you know, I certainly, but the point is, you want to be able to do that stuff anyway. Whether in hindsight you found that useful or not, the same with buying your cute baby nursery stuff. The point is having the choice to do that and experience that. When that's taken away, very hard to deal with sometimes. So if your antenatal classes were cancelled or sort of gone to an online thing, you might have also, you might have been going to swimming classes or yoga, pregnancy yoga classes or pregnancy Pilates classes. Did all that stuff get cancelled? Most likely. Suddenly everything's stopping, and this experience that you wanted to have, and particularly if you wanted to be doing some really beautiful physical things. What about a maternity shoot? Maybe you had something like that planned and that got taken from you, I'm so sad that that's happened to some of the mums out there. I'm hoping you've just kind of made do with what you can, and that your partner or a friend was able to just take a few shots if that was something that you really wanted to do. I really encourage you to, if that was on your agenda, to get a maternity shoot or some photos or some family photos and stuff, to try and still get them done just with a friend, or certainly get some done with your newborn a few days, weeks or months after birth. That's actually what I did. I didn't have any ones beforehand. And I've got ones now when my son was 3 months old. He's now nearly 16. And I'm so glad I did that. And we got the little hand and foot molds. We just went to town kind of thing. And you do with your first puppy. If you can, if you're able to do that, you won't regret it. Record as much stuff as you can. I know that is extremely hard at times, but it's so worth it to look back on. Also, I really wanted to acknowledge how difficult it must have been if your partner suddenly was not able to come to any of your appointments. Sometimes partners come to all of them, sometimes they come to some, but again, just sort of have that taken away from you, that choice, that option, and you having to go alone to some of your checkups and have the scan alone, or, and with scans and checkups, so incredibly important. And sometimes you don't know what you might hear, you kind of go in hoping that everything's fine, and that would have been extraordinarily difficult to go into an appointment. And what if they found something that was a little amiss with Bubs, and there you were alone in that experience? If that was you, I really feel for you. I hope that the staff member that was with you, or your obstetrician or whoever was with you, was able to support you through that, and then you're able to get support from your partner or your family, whoever was able to do that for you afterwards. But again, not having that, and that being told your partner can't come to these appointments anymore. Whoa, and how sad that is for your partner too, who might have been very much part of that process and wanting to attend. And you certainly wouldn't have been alone in that. If you've been chatting to any other mums online, you might have all experienced that frustration and sadness around that. Some other things that you might have experienced too, what if you lost your job? What if your partner lost their job? What if suddenly people had to work from home? Or what if your partner's FIFO and then suddenly had to go on extended FIFO with quarantining and all this stuff? Stressful stuff. Finances. Particularly if employment status changed during the pandemic, and suddenly, not from having to not really worry about things, or sort of knowing, we're on track with things, or having savings, and suddenly things have changed, you've got to use your savings, or suddenly there is no money coming in, or you've got to scramble to get the JobKeeper supplement and all that kinds of stuff. Oh boy, really stressful, unplanned stuff. And even if you are a planner and quite organised and did have savings, and suddenly you've had to burn through them or use them for things that you weren't anticipating, or you might have been hoping to use that to build some stuff for the baby's room, or buy stuff, or even go and do things like have a pedicure and have a spa day. Gone. A, you couldn't do that anymore, but B, suddenly the financial situation might have changed and those luxuries were off the table completely. Particularly, I think, in the early days of the pandemic, late February, March, certainly coming into March, where everything was like closed, and not knowing how long is this going to go on for. And thinking, with the money that we do have, or that was coming in, how long is this going to last? How long is the money going to last, and how long is this pandemic and these restrictions going to last? 3 months, 6 months, 12 months? So many unknowns. You can only plan for so much. Sure, you can plan for a rainy day, but it's been like pouring and cyclones and floods and tsunamis and like crazy stuff, like lightning everywhere. I'm just describing that pandemic. So unpredictable. Adding a layer of stress to a pregnancy that may have already turned out to be completely different to how you thought it would be. So if your employment status changed, or your partner's did, or financially things changed, last thing you need is more stress during a pregnancy. And then not being able to access any of the usual supports that you might have been. Maybe you were, swimming was your thing, or yoga was your thing, or going to get your nails done was your thing, or getting your hair done, getting some waxing and all this kinds of stuff. Maybe catching up with friends, all the things that you might have been doing, even that changed. I wouldn't say some of them were gone temporarily. I hope that the things that were able to stay, what you were able to kind of morph them into something while still not in person. You're able to find your little tribe online, and the best thing you could do is connect with other people who are going through the same thing as you. And I know there is probably oodles and oodles of groups online for mums, for pregnant women kind of thing. I really encourage you to connect with some other mums if you haven't been doing that, if you have access to the internet, of course, and just have a little chat. You don't have to use your real name, you can just be quite anonymous. You don't even have to participate. Just kind of reading other comments, other women's, or listening to other women's experiences can be really helpful. The only word of caution I would give around that is just be mindful that there's many, many different opinions, and there's so much information out there, and not to take everything on board, not to lose sight of what you wanted for and hoped for and what you believed in. And just remember to get information from good, reliable sources. So I'm talking about your doctor, your obstetrician, your midwife, your therapist, good government sites that you trust and that would be relaying reliable information. I personally find in terms of media sources, the ABC to be really useful, but that's just me. I find them to be up to date and reliable. What about if you've given birth and you had planned to have a few people in the birthing suite with you, and suddenly you couldn't? Suddenly it was only your partner, and heaven forbid if your partner wasn't even allowed in there. How devastating that might have been if that was really, really important for you. Equally as devastating though if you'd planned to have your partner and say your mother or a close friend or whoever, and suddenly they were written out of the equation. Really heartbreaking stuff. I really encourage you to remember, if all is safe and well and baby was born well, that is the most important thing. It is important though to be sad about that and to experience that kind of little grief and loss, that the experience was not how you hoped. Look, for many women, you might have a good birth plan in your head and want certain people to be in the room, and you'd like the actual birth to be like this, and you would like some candles or some oils, or I don't know, millions of music, millions of different things. Overwhelmingly, it never really turns out how you hoped it would. Sometimes it's better, sometimes it's kind of worse than what you'd hoped. A lot of the times things just fly out the window. The more you're able to ease up around that, to just relax and kind of let go and trust that, sure, I can have some ideas in my head about what I'd like, but if I keep them kind of loose, kind of flexible, focus on a really good outcome here, the better and the easier that will be. Because if things do change during the birth, the labour and the birth, you're able to kind of go, okay, this is not what I anticipated, but I can deal with this, you know, I got this. And that is a good rule of thumb for most of life. So the more we try to control things, the more we try to really structure and organise things and go, it has to be this way, generally the harder we actually make things for ourselves. The more we're able to be flexible and kind of flowing around things. Yes, absolutely, we can have an idea of what we'd like and how we'd like things to go, but if we're able to just let it go when things don't quite work out, to feel the feelings, you might feel frustrated or angry or sad, confused, feel those things, and then kind of just, all right, I'm just kind of going to let myself go with how it's actually happening here. And never so is that as important as when you're having a baby. There's many things that are way out of your control. Your body is just doing its thing. You're along for the ride there. You're the vehicle that's transporting this little being into earth. There's many people around you. For some people, you know, giving birth, and there's lots of things that you can't manage at that time. So the more you're not manage, sort of control. So the more you're able to sort of manage, using that word correctly now, manage how you cope with that psychologically and emotionally, the better, generally. What about post-birth? You might have found you were not able to have any visitors, or be very, very restricted on who can visit, the numbers, usually only a partner or 2 people kind of maximum. Look, on that note, this is an interesting one because yes, it's lovely to have visitors. Many people, friends and family, want to come. Sometimes this is endless, you know, line of people who want to come and visit you and the baby. And that, again, that is another loss when you wanted that or you hoped for that and then they can't come. I want to say, though, what the midwife that I heard from through someone who was pregnant that I know, her midwife had said what they had found, though, was because the lack of visitors had been so, because there was rules around hardly any visitors or just the partner, etc., etc., what they found on the ward was increased rates of breastfeeding success and more time to focus on that. Because when you're trying, especially if it's your first baby, I know breastfeeding is natural, we all hope to be able to do it, but that doesn't mean we know how to do it. Doesn't mean baby knows how to do it, particularly if Bubs is a bit small or a bit premature, or there's some tongue tie or some many different issues there. You might have some struggles with flow, with the milk coming in. You know, there's many things that can go a bit wrong. And if you're really stressed and you might be recovering from surgery, or you're recovering from the birth, of course you'll probably be really tired and exhausted as well. Actually not having an endless onslaught of visitors, what they've found, certainly on the wards, is that it helped get better breastfeeding outcomes, because mum was able to just concentrate on breastfeeding and trying to get that right, and if there was any problems that came up, able to deal with that without kind of constant interruptions. And I think the visitors thing is really tricky. If you're a person who really struggles to say no and set firm boundaries, this can really show up when you've had baby and suddenly every man and his dog, or every woman and her cat in your life wants to come and see this beautiful baby. Yes, yay, wonderful, of course. That can be too much. And that can be very overwhelming and very stressful, particularly if your birth experience has been difficult or traumatic. it's very important that either you or someone who can advocate for you, whether that's your partner, a family member that you do want there a lot, a midwife can advocate for you and say, look, very limited visitors. So I'm just talking about general birth experiences now, not during the middle of a pandemic. During the pandemic, that's kind of automatically happened for you, which kind of may have been a good thing, kind of thing, even though you might have been a bit bummed. I know many mums these days, you're in and out of hospital pretty quick, generally, depending if things are okay or not okay, public, private, that kind of thing. So it's not a bad thing if you don't have lots of visitors. You will be home before you know it, then people can come. And if you're able to be a bit assertive and set some limits around who can come, how many people can come visit, when they come and visit, if they come to be helpful, to bring something, i.e. food, or they're coming and willing to help clean up, do some housework, do some washing for you, take baby while you have a nap. These are the things you really need help with, particularly if it's your first baby and you're a little all over the shop. First 6 weeks are going to go like that, and they're going to be an absolute blur. You probably won't even remember you're human, or you might be questioning why you've done this kind of thing. And at other times you will be so in love with your baby, you will be stunned at how incredible that experience is. So whilst it can be very disappointing, of course, not to have the visitors, and you might have actually had to struggle with supporting other people through that. If people are really disappointed, it might be the mother-in-law or somebody that I really want to come and I'm really upset. Of course they're upset, but that's, at the end of the day, that's their problem and their feelings to sort out themselves. That's nothing to do with you, what they've experienced. And when we're able to kind of, as a general rule of thumb, another little rule of thumb there, when we're able to kind of let that go and trust that, that person is their own human and that's their disappointments are theirs, I can empathise with them, but it's not my problem to solve. And this is going to be very important for you post-birth, when you have the baby, throughout that baby's life, of kind of being able to say no and not get pulled in by other people's stuff, really. Maybe you've already struggled with it in your life, will struggle with that in your life, of saying no to people without feeling guilty. That's such a big, really big issue for many of us, and it's probably going to show up a lot once you have a baby and once you become a mother. Another thing that this midwife reported was, because of the lack of visitors, they found that there was a lot more skin-to-skin contact between mummy and baby, and daddy and baby as well, and a lot more bonding time. Because if it's just the three of you, and I know that not all people would have a partner, or there might be more than three or whatever, or just you and Bubs or whatever, but without that kind of endless stream of visitors, it's actually has created many more opportunities for bonding and connection, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing, and a great little silver lining to a really difficult situation that many of you would have experienced, being pregnant and giving birth right now. What else do I want to say here? On the note of kind of going back to being pregnant and the losses of not being able to have the baby shower, if also what I did note from somebody who's been pregnant during this pandemic was she really felt a bit sad that she wasn't able to socialise as much as she normally would have. So say you were working and then got the option to then work from home, which is great that you have that freedom and flexibility and you still have a job. But what she found was she missed out on some of those experiences of just those casual little chats in the hallway, or just with friends. So you've gone out for a coffee or whatever you're drinking during you're pregnant, and you've caught up with other women, colleagues or friends who've had babies. And they've just been able to share some information with you, and how sometimes, particularly at work, if you work with a group of people, you might just have this little casual chat in the hallway and something amazing comes from it, or you're able to ask some questions and get some information. You just never know with those kind of spontaneous chats. So some of you may have found that was taken away from you, and what you've had to do is consciously phone someone or text someone to get some specific information, or to ask your midwife or obstetrician or to look that information up yourself. So really, I found that really interesting because there's so much, I think, that happens in our casual connections with people, little conversations in the hallway, or just a little catch up for a coffee or a cup of tea, and suddenly you're finding out some information that never would have occurred to you to even ask or think about. And that's a real shame. I think that opportunity also went for many mums during this pandemic. So I guess, again, going back to any ways that you are able to connect and stay connected online, I'm talking about, the better that is, particularly if you find other women or other people that really you click with, and you get a really good sense that we're on the same page and we have the kind of same beliefs as each other. That can be very supportive and encouraging. I just want to give a big shout out to mums out there, particularly first time mums or anytime mums whose family don't live in Perth. So we're in Perth, but wherever you're watching this from, if you say your mother or your extended family live in a different state or in a different town from you, and they've not been able to travel and spend time with you during the pregnancy or during the birth or after the birth, how devastating would that be, particularly if you're really close to I'm going to use the example of a mother. You're close to your mum and you don't live in the same state as her, and this is your first baby, and they weren't able to come and be part of that journey and see your baby bump grow, and to support you through the pregnancy, to help you out to do some cooking. I know I'm kind of going old school and traditional here, but whatever typically your mother in this example might do, to be with you during the birth or afterwards, to not have that when you were really hoping for that and anticipating, like there's no reason why that wouldn't happen, and along came a freaky pandemic. I mean, really unpredictable stuff. How difficult that must be not to have family with you, or if it's just you and your partner and you've moved to a particular state or city or town, and again to have that choice to have other family members with you during that experience taken from you. Really, really hard. And I really hope as soon as they're able to travel, they're on that plane or in that car or on that train and coming to see you ASAP kind of thing, because that would be very difficult. And I think with many of these experiences, and I have mentioned that a bit before, earlier on, a few minutes ago, there is grief. There is grief and loss associated with what you hoped to have happened and what didn't happen. Grief and loss isn't just about, say, typically, the death of someone or a breakup or something that we typically associate with a loss. There are many, many losses in our lives and many different ways to grieve. And we can grieve things that we hope to have happened in the future that didn't happen. We can grieve plans that didn't plan out. We can grieve experiences that we so hoped to happen during pregnancy and didn't happen. This often shows up if you've had a birth that was not how you planned at all, and in fact if you've had a birth that was traumatic, or say you had to have an emergency cesarean, or something happened in pregnancy that was life-threatening to you or the baby. A lot of strong emotional responses may come up after that. Totally normal to experience a whole array of feelings, and one of those feelings would be grief. So and if that's happened to you during the pandemic, that you have gone on to have your baby and it didn't work out the way you wanted and you weren't able to have friends and family, I really encourage you to, like I said, make connections where you can. And if you're really struggling, to get some either practical support or psychological support. So I'm talking about some counselling, some therapy, which we do here at Women's Health and Wellbeing Services, or go to your GP, have a chat with them, talk to your child health nurse, talk to the midwife who walked you through your pregnancy or birth, join a mother's group, here in Perth we have the Mother Baby Nurture group, which was a very supportive mummies group. Particularly if you're struggling a little bit to connect and bond with your baby, or the whole baby experience is just like, this is nothing like what I thought. anything that can help you heal and recover psychologically as well as physically, incredibly important. But I'm just really mindful of the notion of grief and loss, that from something that you might think is trivial, I couldn't have a baby shower, or I couldn't buy stuff for the nursery, or I couldn't just talk to my friends that I really wanted to talk to, right through to really big stuff. My mother wasn't able to be there for the birth, or my special person, or the birth went really haywire and none of my family were able to be with me. It doesn't matter how big or small the experience is that caused you to feel distressed and caused you to feel a sense of loss and grief. The fact is you're feeling it, and it's very important, particularly being a mother, that you deal with that you get the support you need to work through that, because I certainly don't want that to be affecting how you're going with Bubs and the beautiful experience of becoming a mother. You know, with the birth of a baby is the birth of a mother. Massive, massive life change in identity, change in role, change in lifestyle, change in relationship. Change. Coming at you like a freight train kind of thing. And not all changes are easy. So the more you're able to get some support during that and get some help if you are struggling, and just to talk it through, to say, you know what, it really friggin' sucked that I didn't have my baby shower. Damn it. And you might feel angry, like I'm like cranky about that. Or you might just feel really sad and distressed. All of that is fine. All of that is normal. The important thing is that you really validate that for yourself, and you have people around you who can validate that experience and help you process these experiences so that you're able to kind of put them softly and safely away in a place in your mind where they can exist without doing too much harm, we would say. But you've kind of got to feel the feelings that come along with difficult and painful experiences, particularly in relation to giving birth and being pregnant in the middle of a pandemic and not being able to do all the things that we would traditionally associate with having a baby, particularly having your first baby. What else have I got to say here? Yeah, family. I'm just looking at my notes. Baby shoes, stress. You might have also found, I just have a note here about if your appointments had to go to like telemedicine, sort of online or video kind of consults, that might have been really difficult as well. You might have felt some increased sort of anxiety around that in terms of, well, how really well can they check me if I'm just talking to someone via a video or we're on the phone or whatever, rather than physically being able to go in and have those kinds of checks. You might be worried that it's not as accurate. The information that they're telling you might not be as accurate because they haven't been able to physically examine you and physically examine the baby. And of course that's going to increase your anxiety and stress levels around the pregnancy, particularly if you have been worried about something in the pregnancy and you haven't been able to get the actual physical checkup that you wanted, or it was delayed, or you went in and it was just kind of really rushed, or it was really confusing because the doctor wasn't sure, the midwife wasn't sure what was happening, and you weren't sure, and you weren't able to get the answers that you wanted. Very difficult as well. Far from a smooth, happy pregnancy. We all want that. And we all deserve that so much. And it's really upsetting when not only does it not go that way, but it doesn't go that way because of this bizarre worldwide event that's happened. And not just an event like I'm going to say earthquake, or a catastrophic kind of event in the natural or physical environment. We're talking about an event to do with our bodies and our health. And when you're pregnant, boy, are you kind of on alert. And when you have a fresh newborn baby too, you are like much more alert about who's sick, who do I need to stay away from, I need to be well and healthy for me and the baby kind of thing. And here you are, dropped in the middle of a pandemic with a virus that we still don't know much about. I mean, it honestly feels like I'm talking about a movie, a sci-fi movie or some sort of weird thriller where there's this pandemic and it wipes out half the population and there's zombies and all this kind of stuff. Fortunately, that hasn't happened this time. I've not seen a zombie, so we're very, very lucky about that. The point is, this is an experience that is about our physical health and is about sickness and is about vulnerability. And unfortunately, certainly with COVID-19, the vulnerable populations of the world have been the hardest hit, as we all tragically know. And so, you know, being pregnant in amongst that, I can't imagine, you know, even that fear around, well, can I even go to the supermarket? You know, and people were already getting very anxious about that. But then suddenly to see, you know, like what we saw with people just buying so much stuff and hoarding stuff. Suddenly, you know, if you've been doing online shopping, you couldn't do that because the system was crashing, and then things changed, and that then, you know, the supermarkets needed to attend to elderly people, people with disabilities, and of course, kind of thing. But where does that leave you? You know, you as a pregnant mum, maybe you've already got a kid or two with you. What are you going to do now? You know, this is when we really need good support around us. We need a little community around us, even if they're not physically there, you know, certainly online, a little cyber community or a little cyber tribe kind of thing to support you and get you through that, and certainly help you with really practical things. Maybe you weren't even able to go out and buy a whole bunch of nappies, baby wipes, you know, many, many different things. Breast pumps, you know, things like that. There might have been difficulties obtaining these kinds of things, and up goes your stress levels, up and up and up. And we do know, you know, I'm sure you know, when you're stressed, baby is stressed, or when you're stressed, your child is stressed, and vice versa kind of thing. And crazy kind of stuff to be going through right now. So any connections that you can still maintain, incredibly important. And coming out of the pandemic and the loosening up of restrictions, I know here at our service we're now having clients physically come back into the office for their counselling sessions. All of our sessions had switched to telehealth over the phone, and there was some video sessions as well. If that still works for you, great. But if now you have the opportunity to go back in and get some counselling, join that mother's group, do whatever you need to do, go visit the child health nurse or, you know, the doctor, your GP, do it. Really, really do it. If you have any doubts whatsoever, I tell you, it's honestly better to be safe than sorry. Who cares if they think, oh, you're a bit of a worrier? Yeah, you are, because you're a mother and you're a person and you need to know that things are right. So, you know, who cares? Just, it's better to go and get that support and that help than to lie awake at night feeling really lost, really alone, really scared, really confused. There's no need for you to feel that way. Well, I accept that you may feel that way, but in terms of getting support, you can get support to help support you through those experiences. You don't need more stress on top of stress. And if you go out there to get some help and support and you find that the person that you reached out to didn't quite get it, or was unsupportive or shaming or whatever experience, you go find someone else. Don't let that put you off at all. You need to shop around to find the right person that can help you. No different to shopping for a pair of shoes, shopping for whatever it is that we shop for. Different brands of coffee or chocolate kind of thing. I digress. Yeah, so I just really wanted to, there's no one that's popped up to have a little chat-ski with me today, which is a bit of a shame, but that's okay. Maybe watching this back may be helpful for you, or helpful for someone that you know. I just really wanted to normalise the difficulties that may have come up during the pandemic. If you've been pregnant or given birth during the pandemic, particularly for first-time mothers, I think that would have been extraordinarily hard. anything and everything that you've felt is perfectly valid, perfectly normal. And I wanted to mention too, like I've said, the importance of feeling the feelings, feeling some of the grief, some of the anger, some of the frustration, some of the sadness, some of the helplessness that you might have been feeling during this time. Quite helpless, quite powerless, quite overwhelmed with this chaos going on around you. And meanwhile, there you are, growing a new life. One of the biggest things you'll ever do in your life, and it happens to be right now in the middle of a pandemic. You know, I hope you've been able to find a little bit of humour in amongst this. You know, there's this kind of ridiculous memes going around about, oh, the baby's born now will be, or in 9 months' time or whatever, will be the quarantines or the quarantinis or whatever terms. Haha, whether that's true or not. I hope you've been able to find a little bit of joy, to find some silver linings, like I've mentioned, with not having so many visitors, having time to slow down. You know, that was a comment I heard too. While it was kind of enforced, and certainly for many of us, suddenly we couldn't do all the things we wanted to do. When you're pregnant, I think particularly when you're first time pregnant, for some women there's a sense of urgency and a sense of, I've got to do everything. I want everything to be right and perfect before the baby comes. And when you haven't been able to do that, sure, that may be difficult, particularly if, like I mentioned, you're one of those people who likes to kind of get on top of things and have everything ordered and to be a bit more in control. When you can't do that, if you've been able to kind of let that go and accept that things are a bit different and slow down, and you might not be able to go to work, or you've got to work from home, you haven't been able to rush out and go shopping or plan this or do that or catch up with the friends or get your nails done or your hair done or all these kinds of things. On the plus side, that may have given you more time to settle into the pregnancy and to really bond a bit more with your baby while baby's still being inside, or do more bonding on the outside post-birth. If you've been stuck at home, that can be difficult. I'll be like really stuck at home, cabin feverish. So certainly now, while we have the chance to go outside and get some fresh air, connect up with some other mums at the park or at the mothers group or anything like that, really, really important to do that. I did do a live stream, was it last week or the week before? I can't remember, about post-pandemic anxiety, because for some people, going back out into the world after being kind of in lockdown can bring up some fear and anxiety. So I encourage you to have a look at that one if that relates to you, particularly now with a baby and you're like, is it safe to go out into the world? We all know how vulnerable babies are. They don't have the immune systems yet that the adults do around them. They might not have been vaccinated yet, kind of thing. So, and then you kind of still swimming in amongst this fear and uncertainty of a pandemic and a kind of an unknown scary virus, even though certainly what I've read that babies seem to be relatively unaffected. Who cares? I sure as hell would not want my baby or my child to get this kind of thing, because we just don't know. Nobody really knows. And we certainly don't want you being sick or you being completely overwhelmed with worry, and that getting in the way of you having a joyful experience with your pregnancy, your birth, and your bonding with your baby after birth. Incredibly important. Those first few days, weeks, months and years, incredibly important to build a really good bond and attachment with baby, with that little person, to nurture their little brain, remembering that you cannot spoil a baby. Actually impossible to do that. The more you love and cuddle and be with your baby, the better it is. If you're struggling with that, of course, absolutely get some help, and there's lots of help and information out there. By all means, you're welcome to come to our service or find some other support services out there. GPs are always a good first port of call to go out and get some support. Hop on our website too, we have some information there. So I'm going to wrap up now. Been going for nearly an hour. I hope, as I always say, I hope this has been of use to you, whether you're watching this now or watching or listening to this in a replay. I commend you for surviving pregnancy and birth in the middle of this crazy time, this crazy pandemic. I hope it hasn't been too bad and too disappointing, and if it has, that you're able to resolve that somehow and get out the other side and get on with being an awesome mummy and having a great time with your baby. On that note, I'm going to sign off now. I'll be back next week with another live stream. Next week I'm going to be talking about separation anxiety in children after the pandemic and going back to school. You know, that's certainly showing up if you've been homeschooling or the kids or the littlies have been home. Suddenly that everything's going back to normal, whatever that is. And some children might actually be struggling. Surprisingly, they might have not had separation anxiety, or you might have kind of worked through that and suddenly it's coming up again. So I'll be talking about that next week. So all the best. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you would like some more information about our service, or you would like to get some support, by all means send us a message through our Facebook page or hop online to our website, which is whws.org.au. You can call us. Our number is 9490-2258. We are in Perth, Western Australia. Just be mindful of that. Or you can email us at info@whws.org.au. I hope you're getting some sleep, new mummies out there. You're doing a great job. You really are. Have a good week. I'll see you then.